in my admittedly limited knowledge of Scotland and its people, I've discovered that Scottish people really like three things in particular. One is the see you next Tuesday word. Two is haggis, or however you pronounce it, but my friend Tig says that, but he's from the UK, so I'll take that with a grain of salt a little bit. And, three, heroin. Lots and lots of heroin. Hello, everyone. Britton here, also known as Samoki Dude, and if my little SNL opening skit didn't give away what book I was talking about, the book I'm talking about today is Trainspotting from Irvine Welsh, or Irvine Welsh. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce his name, and if he watches this, which I highly doubt he will, but if he ever does, in some weird off chance, sorry I didn't get your name right. You can tell me how to pronounce it if we ever meet. Like many people, I discovered Trainspotting from the exceptional movie from Danny Boyle, which I'll talk about a little later in the video. But spoiler alerts, it is one of my favorite films of all time. And when I learned that Trainspotting was a book, I decided to pick it up as soon as I possibly could, and I wanted to see how it fares with the movie. And I have to say, it was worth the journey, though this book is hardly for the faint of heart. In continuing my fascination with the dregs and reprobates of society, Trainspotting really scratched that itch for me and proves to be a deeply engaging piece of transgressive literature. That said, this book is not an easy read by any stretch of the imagination. Welsh writes with a heavy Scottish dialect, which will probably make it hard for the casual reader to really engage with. That's why I recommend watching the film first before reading the book, which is not something I do very often. I generally like to read the book first, but when it comes to Trainspotting, I saw the film first, and let me tell you, after I watched the film, it made the book far easier to read, because kind of like A Clockwork Orange, the characters talk in this very weird lingo, Scottish lingo. In Clockwork Orange, it's a very weird lingo, but the Scottish lingo in this can be a bit hard for people. I mean, let me just see here. Yeah, there you go. Just for an idea on how it looks. Just a bunch of curse words, though. But, so if my grandma watches this, I'm sorry. But I find that watching the film of Trainspotting really puts into perspective how these guys talk, not unlike how I feel when you watch A Clockwork Orange. It really gives you context for how the words in the book are said, so you can kind of just get the idea just from watching the movie, and then you read the book and it becomes a far easier experience. It also helps that there's a glossary in the back of this book. Let me just show that real quick. That also helps a lot, though I did not notice that until I was pretty far into the book. So, yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks, Mr. Welsh. You're swell. One of the things I particularly like about this book is that Trainspotting is at once not afraid to have fun and revel in the surreal insanity that comes from being a drug addict, because there's a lot of wacky adventures that our motley crew of maniacs get into in this book. But at the same time, it never really shies away from the harsh reality of how drugs can sap your potential, your relationships, and your life if you're particularly unfortunate. There are moments in this book where we see how drugs have destroyed people's relationships and lives and potentials. One moment that really sticks out involves a baby, and if you've watched the movie or seen the film, then you know what I'm talking about. It's probably one of the most harrowing scenes of the film and the book. And after what happens to the baby, you would expect the parents to just sit back and think, damn, we were so fucked up on drugs, we weren't even paying attention to our little girl. But they don't do that. They don't do that at all. They still shoot up. Even after all that, the heroin has its claws so deeply into these people that even when they're given signs to stop doing what they're doing, they don't. And it's really messed up. Yet all too common. It's really sad, I'll be all honesty. But I really like that Welsh writes these characters with honesty. He shows the kind of zany part of being a drug addict, and it also shows the really dark undertones of being a drug addict, and showing that drugs aren't cool. Well, without being super preachy about it. I always think back to that South Park episode where the anti-smoking people do that weird dance. I always think about that. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. There's also the fact that Welsh can capture the common humanity of these people who are just utter degenerates, just scum of the earth. One gripe that I often have with reviewers is that they often confuse likable with compelling. And I can understand why. It takes a certain type of author to find the humanity in people who most would consider to be the scum of the earth, as I mentioned earlier, and Welsh is among them. He really can do it well. These characters are hardly likable individuals. In fact, a lot of them are pretty unhinged, or borderline sociopathic, or both, or they're just really selfish individuals. Yet, it is while many of them are very oddly human and sympathetic in their own way, and while a majority of them are just hapless junkies, lost in the haze of addiction, it is their desire, however small or feeble, to improve themselves. Is that what keeps them sympathetic? At least in my opinion, anyway. I was reminded a little bit of Philip K. Dick's novel, The Man in the High Castle, though it's a very different style. I mean, I guess A Scanner Darkly would also be a really good comparison, because, well, they're both about drugs. But I find that this book is kind of like Man in the High Castle in terms of it's kind of more like a short story collection rather than an actual novel. It kind of follows the lives of these kind of, like I said, reprobates, derelict individuals, these derelict junkies kind of going through their lives, moving forward through their lives and getting on in this really bizarro, darkly comical, but also really messed up version of Edinburgh, Scotland. We even see the so-called straight men like Davy aren't immune to the dark world that this book presents, and there's even a lot of commentary about how the English government has really screwed over the working class of not just England, but also Scotland, and how this economic drought, these lack of opportunities, really drives people into despair, really driving them into the arms of drugs. Welsh's Edinburgh is not a nice place to be, and it ultimately affects the people who live there, however well they're doing. Rather, they're like Davy, who generally gets along and is actually pretty straight, or if you're a guy like Renton, Begbie, Spud, or Sick Boy, who are, well, like I said, they're kind of scumbags. Well, Spud's a nice guy, but, yeah, they got some serious personality flaws. But that's really what I got for the book review. I guess I should talk about the film. It's one of my favorite films. I love Trainspotting. I love the film. I love the soundtrack. I love the bizarro, surreal nature of the film. And I like that they managed to keep the tone of Trainspotting, the kind of episodic nature of this story, while condensing it and kind of getting rid of the sort of filler arcs. Kind of, unfortunately, like Davy's arc, I feel is kind of odd because it just is this kind of oddball story, which isn't about, drug addicts doing weird drug addict things. Great cast. Ewan McGregor. I mean, he's Ewan McGregor. I love him. I mean, he's charming even when he plays unhinged sociopaths, but he's not really a sociopath. Movie is freaking hilarious, as the book is. The book is also really funny, but the film is really funny. Johnny Lee Miller is in it. He plays Sick Boy. He's great. And, of course, the standout is Robert Carlyle as Begbie. He is phenomenal in the role. I really love how he plays this just utterly unhinged character who will just flip out at the just mildest inconvenience. I mean, if you spill beer on him, he'll probably nearly beat you to death. And you really get to see both the really fun part of being an addict, while also showing that, yeah, drugs are really awful and ruin people's lives and their potential. I mean, the withdrawal scene is legitimately one of the most frightening things I have ever seen in a movie. And it's not even a horror film. It's kind of hard to describe what Trainspotting is. It's kind of like a dark comedy drama with some really surreal elements. But I love Trainspotting. It's probably my favorite film that I've ever seen about drug addicts. Yes, even above Requiem for a Dream. Come at me in the comments section. I like Requiem for a Dream, but I don't know. At least Trainspotting, at least I had a good time when watching Trainspotting. That Requiem for a Dream is just, oh man, that film is just unrelentingly dark. And this book is pretty dark too, and the movie's really dark as well. I also forgot to mention about the book, I really like the kind of almost hard-boiled style that Welsh goes into in this book. I do think he would do well if he ever wrote a crime novel. And apparently he has. I mean, I have read Filth from him as well, which is kind of like if Patrick Bateman was a police officer. Also made into a pretty good film with James McAvoy, but I'm getting off topic. I think he would do well doing a crime novel, and apparently he has. I mean, you know, he did Filth, which is pretty good, and he also did a book literally called Crime. I haven't read that one, but I've heard it's very good. I do want to read that at some point. But going back to Trainspotting, I think Trainspotting is a great novel if you're interested in drug addicts. If you're interested in learning about the experience of people who've done drugs, Trainspotting is a deeply authentic, while also wildly zany and entertaining read. I mean, if you can see here, this is the poster for the movie. And yeah, there's all the actors. And Kelly Macdonald's in this. This was her first film. And she's fantastic in the role. We also see Kevin McKidd. Great cast. It's just one of those movies where everything just comes together in a really great, satisfying way. And I love Trainspotting. I enjoy the book a lot, but I think this is one of those cases I might like the movie even more. I think the film is tighter. I think the film gets its point across without dilly-dallying, as the kids like to say out here in the States. Yeah, Trainspotting's a good book. Great film. Not really much else for me to say about that, but check out Trainspotting the book, and especially check out Trainspotting the film. You will not regret it. Well, I mean, I'm definitely biased there because I just adore the film. Probably Danny Boyle's best film. Well, that and 28 Days Later. Anyway, so that's really all I got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You guys like, subscribe, as my friend John Minton from Talking Story likes to say. Please click on that like button. It feels good. Also, I just said that. Find me on Twitter. You can find me on Goodreads and Letterboxd, where I write reviews that are probably more coherent than the one you just heard right now. You can also find me on Discord. I love hearing from you guys. You can also comment down below. I also love hearing from you guys. If you guys have read Trainspotting, tell me what you thought of it, and and what you think, how it compares to the film. Yeah, that's kind of all I got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Until next time, see you later.